Hello everyone, welcome to this video on the functions in the algebra topic. This video is brought to you by Learning Made Easy team, a team of IIM grads in association with a relearning partner, GTCUBE Get to the Top. If you are watching this video in the YouTube channel, make sure that you check out our full-length courses available for free at gtcube.com/store, where you'll get to watch these videos as part of courses and also get to practice a lot of questions after these conceptual videos. So let's get started. So first let's understand what is a function, right? So we actually knowingly or unknowingly use a lot of functions in our life, right? All the things, gadgets, all the things that we use in our life are pretty much working on the basic principle of function. To be very frank, even our mind works on the basic principle of functions in a way. So what do I mean by function, right? Let's say there's a black box like this. There's something that goes in, I call it input, and something happens inside and then it will throw output, right? What happens inside is defined by this something called function. Now that's how I would define a function as. So take something as input, right? Have a definite definition of what to do with that input, and then whatever you get as output, you should throw that out as output, right? So what am I talking about? Let's take a simple example of an alarm clock, right? It does work on the basic principle of function, obviously. What is the input that it takes? So let's say I said to alarm that ring at 11 a.m. right? When, let's say it's a 24-hour clock, so 11 a.m. So when hour is, input of hours is 11 and minutes is 0, then you should ring, right? That's what the algorithm would look like, because it has to ring at 11 a.m. because it's a 24-hour clock. So 11 p.m. would be 23:00. So when the input is having an hour variable of 11 and minutes is 0, then you ring. That will be my output. Otherwise, stay silent. It has two choices. So input keeps going, like let's say the time is 10 a.m. now, right? It will take input as 10 and 0, that's hour and minute. Let's say it is 10:15 now. It will take input as 10 and 15 and so on. Suddenly now it's 11 a.m. so it will take input as 11 and 0. Once it gets input of 11 and 0, it looks at the algorithm. Oh yeah, hour is 11 and minute is 0. Now I need to ring, that's why it will ring. Till that point it will stay silent, right? That is how things work. Take input, have definition for the function, what to do with the input. According to that, give the output. So simple function, we always are used to see this like f of x is the function defined, right? And let's say I define it as x square plus 2. So x is the input here. Once I give an input of x, what should I do? Square it and then add to it, and then that's the output that needs to be thrown out. Right? That's the function definition, right? The black box here is defining that whatever you get, square it and then add 2 to it and then throw that as output. If I give 1 as input, it will square 1, then add 2, so that is 3, that is being thrown as output. And that is what we do, right? What is f of 1 is when 1 is input, so 1 square plus 2, that's why it's 3. Right? If I say for what value of x, or what value of input would give me an output of 5, 6. Okay, let's take 6. Right, so that way is basically if it is x square plus 2, so x square is 6 minus 2, 4, x should be plus 2 or minus 2. Both of them should give me the same output. But anyways, that's how. So function is basically this input, right? I take that, do the operation and then throw the output. What should I do as operations is something that is defined in the function. That's something that you need to be looking at and understanding. There could be multiple inputs like f of x comma y is equals to xy plus y square. So x and y are the two variables, xy plus y square. If I define f of x comma y as xy plus y square and I ask you what is f of a comma b, right? It's simply doing the same. So x is the first input, that's why it is coming here. Y is the second input, that's why it's coming here and here. Similarly, a is the first input, a, b is the second input, b, plus b square. Doesn't matter, it's not that you only should use these variables, right? It is like defining as input 1 and input 2, and I am doing input 1 into input 2 plus input 2 square. So even if I give you f of 2 comma 3, that is 2 into 3 plus 3 square. If I give you f of 2 comma a, it is 2 into a plus a square. You'll get like this. variable plus number, number plus number, variable, variable, it could be anything. All you need to do is just that, look at this as a input 1, input 2, rather than trying to understand it should be only x or it should be only y. That's a wrong, way of looking at the functions. So what you'll get to see in some of the questions is this, f of g of f of something something. So let's assume that I've defined functions like this, okay? F of x comma y is x square plus y square, or 2y, okay? X square plus 2y. And g of a is defined as a minus 4. And let's say h of c is defined as 2c plus 6. Right? So I have defined 3 functions. For function 1, forget about x and y. This is like there are 2 inputs. Input 1 and input 2. I am doing basically input 1 square plus 2 into input 2. For function g, it's 1 input and input 1 minus 4 is this. If I ask you what is g of x, it's simply x minus 4. Don't get confused that x is used here. How can I use it? Like, that has nothing to do with that. These are simply variables that I am using to represent what should I do or what should be my algorithm for the function. Right? So if I ask you now, what is f of g of h of 1 comma g of h of 2, right? So I need to evaluate from the innermost. So first I need to find h of 1. What is h of 1? 2 into 1 plus 6, that is 8. What is so what will this be? G of h of 1 will become g of 8 comma g of h of 2. I need to find out h of 2, that is 2 into 2 plus 6, that is 10. So it will be g of 10. Because I know f will have 2 inputs, that's why we have g of 8 comma g of 10. Now let me find out what is g of 8 and what is g of 10. What is g of 8? A minus 4, that's 8 minus 4 is 4, and g of 10 is 10 minus 4 is 6. So this will translate to f of 4 comma 6. So f of 4 comma 6, if f of x comma y becomes x square plus 2y, this should be 4 square plus 2 into 6. So 16 plus 12, that is 28 is the answer. That's how you need to do. When you have multiple functions inside each other, start from the innermost, find that out, and then take that as input for the next function. Like, let me call it like this. What is the value of f of g of, okay, that doesn't work. What is the value of g of h of g of h of g of 2? Right, I have like g of h of, otherwise I can write this as like this, g of o, you see o instead of bracket, ho, go, ho, g of 2. It's basically the same thing, g of, that's why we bracket, instead of that I am putting o, h. You won't have a function defined as o, the function is defined as g, h, g, h, g. So start from the innermost. So what is g of 2? So g of 2 is 2 minus 4 is minus 2. So this will be replaced to g of h of g of h of minus 2. Right, I replace this entire g of 2 with minus 2. Now h of minus 2 is 2 into minus 2 plus 6 is minus 4 plus 6 is 2. So this will be replaced with g of 2. I already know g of 2 is minus 2. Again I will get h of minus 2, g of h of minus 2. h of minus 2 is, again I know that it is 2. So this will become g of 2, and g of 2 is again minus 2, I know that. So it is going on in that loop that just worked out like that, minus 2 and 2, 2 and minus 2, that's why. But anyways, that's how you need to do, like g of h of or f of g of f of g of something. Just start from the innermost, then go to the next, and then keep doing it till you come to the final, and then give the value. Right? Now, domain of a function. So what do we mean by domain of a function? So if I have a function, right, as I said, the function will take inputs, right? So domain is basically defining all the valid inputs, right? All the valid inputs that can be put into this function is basically the domain of that function. So generally we are talking about numbers from minus infinity to plus infinity. Right? Can I give everything in this whole number system as input, or should I actually, give only certain things? So that's something that depends. So what would be the problem if I give any value, right? Why would something not considered as a valid input? It is like if it cannot throw a valid output, then the input that is given is definitely not counted as a valid input. So what do I mean by valid output? You should technically get a real numbers, right? We are talking about all of this in real numbers sort of it. So the input should be real numbers and the output should also be real numbers. You should not get something like an undefined situation or complex number situation. All of this, if I get outputs like this, I would count these to be not part of my domain or not considered to be the valid inputs. So what am I meaning by that? What do we mean by that? So let's take function like f of x is equals to 1 by x. So what all are possible values for this? I can give everything and anything in this, the whole number system of real numbers except 0. What's wrong with 0? If I take x as 0, what will I get? 1 by 0 is not infinite. We take that as infinite, but it's actually undefined. So the reason what I'm saying this, so 1 by x is like 1 by 0 if x is 0. In this case, I am getting 1 by 0 is undefined, so the output is not valid, invalid output. Hence, 0 is invalid input. So what will be my domain? The way we'll write is this, minus infinity to infinite except 0. So that's why I'm putting minus and then this flower brackets. So you'll see 3 types of brackets which we'll discuss, or we have discussed depending on the way you've seen the videos in the equations or inequalities, but I'll just revise it again. So if I write that 2 to 10 like this is a range. That means x can be anything from 2 to 10, including the endpoints 2 and 10. That's the meaning of the square bracket. That means x can be 2, 2.0001 to 9.999 and also 10. All of these are accepted. These are all correct values for this. When x is belongs to or is in between this range. When I write the same thing as 2 to 10 with a circular brackets, it means almost the same, the entire range, except that the endpoints are not counted. That means x starts off with 2.0001 to 9.999. It can't be 2 or 10. When I write it like flower brackets, what do I mean by that? Only 2 and 10. I'm only talking about whatever I write in the flower brackets. And for infinities, minus infinity, plus infinity, we'll never put square bracket. We'll always put the circular brackets. So I'm saying everything in the number system minus infinity to plus infinity, except, so that's why I'm putting minus circular flower bracket 0. Except this value, everything else is accepted. A minor tweak to this. Okay, let me say if I have f of x as 1 by x minus 2. When will this be? What will be the domain of this? As long as my denominator is not 0, everything is fine for me. So when will the denominator be 0? When x minus 2 is 0, x should be 2. When x is 2, then the denominator is 0. So everything from minus infinity to infinity is okay for me except 2. Why? Because when it is 2, that will give me 1 by 0, which is an invalid output. That's why 2 cannot be part of my input. This is one standard thing that you need to look for. 1 by denominator should not be 0. The other type is this, f of x is defined as, let's say, square root of x. So what is square root of 9? It's plus or minus 3. Be careful on this, right? It's not just plus 3, it can also be minus 3. What is square root of minus 9? So this is, you write it like this, 9 into minus 1. So square root of 9 is 3, plus or minus 3 to be precise again. And square root of minus 1 is not 1 or minus 1, it's called imaginary number I. You cannot do square root of a negative number. So square root of some number, for example, square root of 9 is 3, basically means 3 square is 9 or minus 3 square is 9. Right? What square would give me value as minus 1? None of the numbers that we know can give, because anything squared will be negative is positive, positive is positive. It will never give me a negative value for squares. So that's why we call it as imaginary number I. So I square is considered to be minus 1. That's part of complex numbers, complex math. So that is also not counted to be valid output for me. So what will be the domain for this? I cannot have negative value for x, right? If I have x as minus 3, square root of minus 3 will be, let's say x as minus 4 rather. So I will get 2i as my output, plus or minus 2i as my output, which is complex and I won't count that. So for that reason, invalid inputs will be all the negative numbers. Negative numbers are invalid for me. 0 is fine, square root of 0 is 0, that's okay. Square root of 2, square root of 4. As I said, square root of 4 is plus 2 minus 2. So if f of 4 is basically square root of 4 is plus or minus 2, one input sometimes gives the multiple outputs, that is, one to many function mapping, many to one. So let's not get into that function mapping part, but that's okay, that's accepted. That's what I'm trying to say. But I cannot have an input which is negative, which will throw me a complex number as output, which is not counted as a valid output. So for that reason, what will be my domain for this? Everything, sorry, it should start from 0 to infinite, and 0 is included, so that's why I should have square bracket. I can have everything in the positive and including 0, that's why I'm putting a square bracket here. As I said, infinite will always have the circular bracket. So 0 to infinite, everything in this zone is fine for me as valid input. Anything other than this, like minus 1, minus 0.5, all of those will give me complex numbers, and we will not count that as a valid input. These are the again, square root of x and etc. are important, right? If I say a function like f of x is equals to square root of x minus 2, when will this be throwing me negative? When x, so I should look for x minus 2 should be greater than equals to 0. Everything is okay for me, right? If x minus 2 is positive or equals to 0 is okay. So that will happen when x is greater than or equals to 2. If x is 1, 1 minus 2 will give me minus 1 inside. So that's also not accepted. Unlike here we had 0 to infinite, right? So that case it should be, so when you have square root of something, make sure that inside expression should be greater than or equals to 0. And then according to that you can do the value. So it can have 2 to infinite is the answer for this. That's how you need to find the domain. Now coming to the range of a function. So range of a function is a bit similar to the domain. As I said, domain is all valid inputs I can give. Range is basically all valid outputs that this function can throw. Right? All valid outputs thrown are generated. So if I have a function like f of x is equals to 1 by x, what is the domain for it? As I have already discussed, minus infinite to infinite except 0. So I should find that range will be only with the valid input. So whatever I give as input, what can that throw as my output? The range is everything for this, because I don't have 1 by 0, which is the problem. Leaving that part, I can get everything I want, right? If I want 1 by closer to minus infinity, if I do 1 by 0.000000001, like very large 0.000 for so long, like infinite zeros and then 1, this will be a very large number closer to infinite, right? So we can generate everything from minus infinite to infinite with this. Even f of x is equals to square root of x, as I said, the domain has to be positive. But as I said, even if I talk about f of 4, it gives me plus or minus 2. Square root of 4 is plus or minus 2. So the range is minus infinity to infinite. Everything is possible as output for this. So what are the generally problem areas for the range? The standard ones we see are this. F of x is equals to, let's say, x square. Squares, power 4s, etc. Here the domain is everything. No issues with that. Irrespective of whatever I throw, the range will always be only positive, right? Squares will always be positive. Minus 10 square is plus 100. Minus 100 square is plus 10,000. All the things that you do from minus to plus infinite will only give me 0 to infinite. It will be the smallest, the least value of x square will be 0 when x is 0. Everything else will give me more than that. So the range is only 0 to infinite. If I say what is f of x is equals to mod x, right? If you don't know, this mod x is absolute value. Whatever I throw as input, it should always give me only the value of it, ignoring the sign. So f of minus 2 is, mod of minus 2 is 2. F of minus 4 is 4. F of 6 is just 6, right? So for this, the domain is everything. I can give everything under the sun, minus infinity to infinite, but range will be only positive. Again, the same thing, right? It cannot have negative, so it will only have positive. Then it could also be to do with, let's say, f of x is equals to x square plus 2, right? For this case, for example, I know x square is always positive. The minimum is 0 to infinite for this, but I have plus 2 also, right? So for that reason, it should be 2 to infinite. The range possible is only 2 to infinite. It cannot even hit 0, because even if x is 0, the smallest value for x square, plus 2 will make this as 2 to infinite, right? So generally these are the standard ones you see mod x and play around with that, like 2 mod x plus 3. What is the least value for this? And for this also x square plus 2. So 2 mod x, I know mod x is least is 0. So 2 into 0 plus 3 is the minimum value, and infinite will be the value. So 3 to infinite is the answer for this. And that's how you do with that. So range is basically the outputs. You know what all are valid outputs for this, for whatever the valid inputs that I can give based on the domain of that function. Right? So 1 by x or 1 by, for example, even 1 by 2x minus 3. When I get something like this, make sure that the denominator should not be equals to 0. That is what I need to focus for this part. And when I see square roots, make sure that the value inside it should be always greater than or equals to 0. If I have something like this, 1 by mod of x square plus 4 or minus 4, okay. So this is in the denominator and also have square root. So inside square root, that is x square minus 4, I should have it positive, not equals to, because if I make x square minus 4 equals to 0, I get 1 by 0, which is also not accepted. That's why I only have to see greater than 0. If it was simply square root of x square minus 4, I just have to check x square minus 4 should be positive. That's it. Greater than equals to 0, because even 0 is accepted for this. But for this case, 1 by the 0 is not accepted. That's why we should only do for greater than 0. Right? These are the things that you commonly get to see as a fraction, 1 by something, or square roots. For this case, you'll see squares, mods for the range, which will give you slightly different answers. So let's talk about the graphical representation of a function, right? If I have a function, how would I draw a graph? Or if I see a graph, how would I read the function, right? Let me first come from this function to the graph part. Let's say I know f of x is defined as 2x plus 4. How would I draw a graph? If you are comfortable with the coordinate geometry, this is simply like this. F of x output is taken as variable y, and x is the input, so y is equals to 2x plus 4, and then according to that plot it, right? If drawing this line, if you are comfortable with the coordinate geometry, you should be able to draw a line like this. Let's say, okay, I'll come to it slightly later, but let's look at this, okay? Even forget about this if you're not comfortable with that. Just let's take for some values. If x is minus 2, what is f of x? 2 into minus 2 plus 4 is 0. If x is minus 1, 2 into minus 1 plus 4 is minus 2 plus 4 is 2. X is 0, then it's 4, 1 is 6 and 2 is 8. These are the inputs I found, right? I draw this graph, I draw this x-axis, y-axis. You see, when x is 0, what is the value of f of x? 4. So x will be the input, will be my x-axis, and the y-axis is my output, f of x. Right, so this is like, forget about x and y stuff like that. Think more like input and output. My input is x-axis and my output is y-axis. So if I have input as 0, what is my output? 4. That's why it should be this point, right? Input comma output. Input is x-axis and output is y-axis, right? So this is my input and this is my output. So output should go on the y-axis and input should come on the x-axis. If I say 1 is 6, so when input is 1, output should be 6, right? This is 1 comma 6. And when input is minus 1, output is 2, so input is minus 1, output is 2, right? So similarly, input is 2, output is 0. I get points, I can join them to get this line. Right, that's how I can also look at the graph and read. As I said, the y-axis value would be output and x-axis is my input. Even if I have a function defined as f of y is equals to 2y plus 4, okay? Don't get confused with this y being the y-axis and x should be the other thing. No. Input is y here, right? Input is y. That's why if f of 0 is 4, this is still 0 and 4. It won't change. F of y is equals to y by 4 is same as f of x is 2x plus 4. Don't get confused with this. Normally we think this is y-axis, this is x-axis. So if I say y is 2y plus 4, f of 0 is 4. So I take y as 0 and x as 4 and mark point like this. No, that's not how you need to do. Think only in this way. Input, output. Input is my x-axis and output is my y-axis. Input is 0, output is 4, I put 0 and 4. That's the way you should see. Do not see it like, is it y, is it x, is it z, and according to that I try to put it in those axes. No, do not get confused with that. Okay, let's look at another example. Input is this, output is this. If input is 0, output is 2. F of x is x square plus 2. This is a quadratic equation. F of 0, 0 square plus 2 is 2. Right? F of minus 1, so minus 1 is input. So minus 1 square is 1 plus 2 is 3. And f of 1 is also 1 square plus 2 is 3. Similarly, f of 2 is 2 square is 4 plus 2 is 6. And minus 2 square plus 2 is also 6. Clear? Input and output. So now if input is 0, input is 0, input is x-axis, what is my output? 2. So go to the y-axis, mark 2. So this is 0 comma 2, right? I need to mark like this. Minus 1 is my input and output is 3. So go to minus 1 and go to 3 in this, right? This is 3. Come to this point, minus 1 comma 3. Now input is 1, output is 3. So this is x and this is y, right? 1 comma 3. And this is 2 comma 6, input is 2, output is 6. I just need to plot 2 comma 6, 2 is here, 6 is here, 2 comma 6. And similarly here also I'll see minus 2 comma 6 for this, minus 2 comma 6. And similarly I get this curve to be created, right? That's how I can create or I can read the curve. If I give you curve and I don't give the table, right? I see this, okay? When x is input is 0, the output is 2 because I see point here. When input is 2, the output is here, that is 6. So when input is 2, output is 6. That's how I read the graph. So if I ask you what is f of 2, I don't know this entire definition. Let's say if input is 2, what is the output? I'm seeing here 6. So this is 6. That's how you need to read the function, right? Now in some of the questions you will see some new definitions for some expressions, etc. So we call them as formulas, in a concept way. So it's all defining some new expressions, like we know what is a into b, that's a multiplication, right? But we don't know some new expressions which are not existing in normal math. They just define it to give you questions like this. So for example, I'll come to this part. This is the standard definition which most of us might not know. So greatest integer function is what this definition is talking about. But anyway, you just need to read this statement. They would not expect you to know this before, that's why they'll define it. If, right, this bracket, square bracket x is defined as the largest integer that is less than or equal to x, right? This is basically largest integer, right, that is less than or equal to x. So whatever the x be, right, mod x, sorry, the square bracket x should be less than or equal to this, and this has to be integer only. That's what the definition is saying, right? It's defined as the largest integer that is less than or equal to x. So it's asking me to give the value for this, right? Largest integer that is less than or equal to x. So let's read it first like this. Integer that is less than or equal to x. Integer that is less than or equal to 2.95. What are the integers that are less than or equal to 2.95? 2, 1, 0, minus 1, minus 2 and so on, right? All of these are integers that are less than or equal to 2.95, right? But it is asking me to pick the largest integer. So the largest of the lot is 2, so that's why this is 2, right? So simply if you understand this clearly, over time you can do it. Like anything I see, just ignore the decimal and just write 3 as output. Because the large integers that are less than or equal to 3.99 will be 3, 2, 1, 0, etc, etc, and the largest will be 3, that's why we'll take 3. That's what we are doing. That is how they are defining things like this, right? Sometimes you will get to see two variables like this. If x at the rate y is defined as x square by 2y, and where y is not equals to 0, because as I said, by 0 is an undefined, so we will not have that. They are asking us to find 3 at the rate 6 at the rate 2. So first find the innermost 6 at the rate 2. X at the rate y is x square by 2y. What is 6 at the rate 2? 6 square by 2 into 2. Right? That's the definition, right? So 6 square is 36 by 2 2s are 4. So it's basically 4 9s are 36. So 3 at the rate 6 at the rate 2 will become 3 at the rate 9. This is like how functions are defined. If I say f of x comma y is x square by 2y, right? And if I ask you what is f of 6 comma 2, f of 3 comma f of 6 comma 2, this is what the question is asking. So first you find f of 6 comma 2, that is 6 at the rate 2 is 9, and then it will become f of 3 comma 9, so I need to do 3 at the rate 9. That's what the question, instead of this way, they're framing it in the formula way, definition way. That's it, nothing different from this. All you need to do is to keep substituting and get the correct answer. So 3 at the rate 9 is 3 square by 2 into 9, so that's 9 by 2 into 9, so that's half is the answer for this question. That is equals to half, right? So let's solve some problems. As we always recommend, we suggest you to pause the video and try these on your own. Once you have tried, you can follow the explanations that we're giving so that you understand them better. If you couldn't solve, or even if you could solve, you took a bit more time, so your conceptual understanding will be better. So hope you have tried. F of x comma y, a function is defined as 4x square y square. G of h is defined as 2h plus 3. And f of a comma b is given as 16. So I don't know the value of a and b. So if I give a and b as input, the output is 16 for this function f of x comma y. So find the value of f of 3a comma 2b is what the first question is. So you see, what is f of a comma b according to the definition of the function? 4 into a square into b square equals to 16. 4 ones are 4 fours are. So I know that a square b square is 4. I'll keep this aside for now. What is the question asking me? To find out f of 3a comma 2b. Now if I define it again in the same way, what will I get? 4 into 3a square into 2b square. So what would that be? 4 into 9a square into 4b square. So if I take the coefficients to the left, so it will be like 4, I mean to say the same expression, 4 into 9 into 4 into a square into b square. From this I know a square into b square is 4. So I can replace this with also 4. So this will come as 4 into 9 into 4 into 4. Right, so this will be like 64 into 9. So that will be 576. And that's the answer for this. Right, you don't need to know what are the values of a and b. Okay, even if you get to this point, you understand a square b square is 4. You take a as 1 and b as 2, or a as 2 and b as 1, or minus 1 plus 2 blah blah. You can keep taking quite a few cases so that a square b square is 4, and I try here, you'll get the same answer. But you don't even need to do that. I can just keep a square b square as 4 aside, and then I'll get the same. The questions would also be asked in the same way. They would not ask me what is the value of f of 3a comma 2a. If I ask you this question, there will be infinite answers, or lot many multiple possibilities for this. That's why they won't ask question like this. What is the value of f of g of 0 comma g of minus 1? So what is g of 0? G of h is 2h plus 3, so g of 0 is 2 into 0 plus 3 is 3, and g of minus 1 is 2 into minus 1 plus 3 is minus 2 plus 3 is 1. So what is f of g of 0 comma g of minus 1? That's f of 3 comma 1. So 4 into 3 square into 1 square, so 9 4s are 36 into 1, 36 is the output for f of g of 0 comma g of minus 1. Right, that's how we should do this. Find the domain of the function f of x is equals to 1 by square root of x square minus 4. As I said, if you see this, immediately you should be thinking, okay, there are two problems. The denominator should not be 0, and the value inside the square root should be positive or greater than or equals to 0 actually. Right, these two should be your worry. Once I see a square root, the value inside square root should be greater than 0, and the denominator should not be equals to 0. What is value inside the square root? So x square minus 4 should be greater than or equals to 0. But because if I have equals to 0, right, when x is 2, for example, 2 square minus 4 is 4 minus 4 is 0, I will get this expression as 1 by 0. That will make my denominator go 0. Again, that's a problem. That's why I should not have 0 as equals to here. So simply both the rules are satisfied if x square minus 4 is positive. If x square minus 4 is greater than 0, the value inside will not throw me complex number as output, and if as it is not equals to 0, square root of x square minus 4 will never be equals to 0, and that will not make the denominator go as 0. So I just need to solve this. So x square minus 4 is greater than 0. So if you don't know how to do quadratic inequalities, this is like x square, don't do this way. The doing this way is wrong, like send 4 this side, so don't take the x is greater than or equals to plus or minus 2. This is absolutely wrong, right? When you say x square minus 4 is greater than 0, split this into x square minus 2 square is greater than 0. A square minus b square is a minus b into a plus b. Right? So generally you see what are the roots for this, I mean what are the points, or rather I call them as critical points in a way. Minus 2 and 2. Minus 2 is coming from this. X plus 2 I equals to 0, so x is equals to minus 2, and x minus 2 equals to 0, x is equals to 2. So these are my critical points. So critical points are the points for which this expression will be 0 and the sign of the whole expression will change. So minus 2 and 2, from minus infinite to infinite, so this is one zone, this is another zone, and this is another zone. In these three zones, one of them will be positive and then negative and positive. I'll see alternative signs like that. So I just need to figure out in at least one zone what is the sign, okay? So first and foremost, as I said, you see a quadratic inequality, make them as a square minus b square, like, you know, even if it's a slightly complex, you can convert x minus a into x minus b once you know the roots. Once you get it as of the form x minus a into x minus b is greater than 0, less than 0, greater than equals to 0, less than equals to 0. These are the only possible inequalities. So I call a and b as the critical points. Once I know them, in the number line minus infinite to infinite, a and b, the smaller and then the larger. So minus infinity to a, I will see one type of a sign. The entire zone will have either positive or negative. The a to b will have alternative. If this is positive, this should be negative and then positive. Negative, positive, negative. That's how the signs will change. Right? So because I need to have x square minus 4 is greater than 0 is positive. This expression should be positive. When will they be positive? Okay, let me take one example here. Let me take 0 for example. Right? Minus 2 to 2 will have 0. So if x square is 0, I'll get 0 minus 4 is minus 4, that is negative. So this entire zone is negative. Minus 2 to 2, take any value you want. As I said, minus 2 and 2 will give 0. Those are the critical points, so they will give 0 if I substitute x as minus 2 or x as 2. In between those, I will get negative. So automatically this should be positive and this should be positive. Minus infinity to minus 2. I'm not including because if I put a square bracket, it means I'm also including minus 2, which will give 0 as answer, which is not accepted. And 2 to infinite. And so that's why I'm putting union, that is both. Anything in this zone or this zone will make x square minus 4 positive. Everything between this, right? If x is minus 2 or 2, it will give me 0. Between minus 2 to 2, it will give me negative, which will give me square root of a negative value, which is a problem for me. That's why the domain is this. Right? If I take minus 10 for example, what will I get? 1 by minus 10 square minus 4. That's 1 by minus 10 square is 100 minus 4 is 1 by square root 96. Whatever the value be, it's positive, I'll get some value for this. Right? Anything and everything from minus infinity to minus 2 to 2 to infinity. That's how you should solve a quadratic inequality. Make them as x minus a into x minus b. These are roots, okay? Even if you don't know, you can just solve. If you have seen the equations video, minus b plus or minus square root of b square minus 4ac by 2a, you will get the roots for this. For equation, let's say 3 and minus 2 are the roots. What would this expression look like? X minus 3 and x plus 2. Because minus 2 is the root, it should be x plus 2. Plus 3 is the root, it should be x minus 3. Draw the critical points. This should be minus 2, this should be 3. Should be writing roots, not what I write here, okay? I write minus 3, don't write minus 3 here. It should be the roots, minus 2 and 3 are written here. So you'll have minus infinity to minus 2 is one zone, minus 2 to 3 is another zone, 3 to infinity is third zone. According to which you can find the signs by assuming some value. I can take 0 for example and find which of them give me positive, negative and solve. Right? Now let's look at the range question. So the answer for the domain is minus infinity to minus 2, 2 to infinite. So what is the range for x square minus 4? This is easy, right? I said x square, what is the minimum value? It's basically 0 to infinity is the range of x square. X, the minimum is 0, everything else I give it will be positive. So x square minus 4 will be minus 4 to infinite. When x is 0, so 0 minus 4 will give me minus 4. Everything else will be like 1 minus 4 is minus 3, 100 minus 4 is 96. All other values I can take for x minus values, positive values will always give me more than 0. So the minimum is minus 4, that's 0 minus 4, and maximum will be infinite. So the answer is minus 4 to infinite is the range for this. Right? Now this question is about reading the graph and then for answering what is f of minus 1. So as I said, start from the innermost. F of minus 1 I need to find out. So I said f of minus 1. That means when input is minus 1. So that is check at x-axis when, right, x is minus 1. When x is minus 1. What is y? Y is here itself, right? Because the graph is cutting through minus 1. That means the point is minus 1 comma 0. That means output is 0. So f of minus 1 is 0. So f of minus 1 becomes f of 0. Now I need to find out f of 0. When input is 0, go to the x-axis, take the input, x-axis value 0. What is the y value? Here it is. At the line is being cut when I am going in the vertical direction for x0 is cutting here, that is at 2. So 0 comma 2 is the point, right? So when input x-axis is 0, y is 2 for this line. So when input is 0, f of 0, output is 2. So that means the answer is f of minus 1 is 2. F of minus 1 is 0. So f of minus 1 becomes f of 0 and it is 2. That's how you read the graph. If you are confused, I would recommend you to try it again by rewinding the video without me solving this question. Try it and then you can watch the same video again, the same bit again, so that you get a clarity on this, right? So this one is like on the formulas thing. So I am defining a new formula like a hash b means a square minus b square. So this should be a square minus b square. And now this is greatest integer function defined as the largest integer that is less than or equal to x. We have already discussed this earlier, right? So what is 6.85? What are the integers less than or equal to 6.85? 6, 5, 4, etc. The largest will be 6, so the output is 6 for this. Largest integer that is less than or equal to x. Integer that is less than or equal to 6.85 are 6, 5, 4, etc. And the largest is 6, so the output is 6. 2.99, similarly, the integers that are less than or equal to 2.9 are 2, 1, 0, etc. And the largest of them is 2. So it's asking me to find out the value of 6.85 greatest integer function hash 2.99. So first let me find out these values. So they will turn out to be 6 hash 2. And a hash b is a square minus b square. So 6 hash 2 is 6 square minus 2 square. So 36 minus 4 is 32 is the answer for this. Right, that's how you should solve them. Read the function definition clearly and then according to that you can solve these questions. These are nothing different. This will be easy once you read properly the definitions of those functions. So thank you for watching this video. If you are watching this video in the YouTube channel, make sure that you are checking out our full-length courses available for free at gtcube.com/store, where you'll get to watch these videos as part of course and also get to practice a lot of questions on these concepts. Also do like our partners Facebook page, facebook.com/gtcube3, where you'll get to watch these videos as part of the course, and also where you'll get a lot of updates on our content. We're coming up with a lot of content that would help you in your preparation. So do like our partners page, Facebook page, so that you'll be updated once we're coming up with new updates and notifications. So thank you for watching this video and let's meet in the next video.